Welcome back to another podcast here with 100 Families in Pulaski County. We have the pleasure of having another time to speak with Bonnie. She's here with us today. Bonnie, welcome back. Thank you for coming.
Yes.
We are going to talk about motherhood in recovery today. And of course, we have Mr. Russell, the tatted man.
The third
He's
leg
not a
today.
mother. He's not in recovery.
Oh, yeah.
But we want to thank our guest for coming. And we have some questions and want you to just dive in, be yourself. You know how we do it here.
Yes.
It's laid back.
Yes.
And guess what?
What?
Russell's going to start with questions
Okay.
today.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you for inviting me back
Yes.
on. I love having conversations. It's like a tableside discussion, so I love it. Thank
And
you.
we have some good conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And they may not know it, but I'm going to tell y'all, we have conversations prior to the podcast. So, yeah, we're just going to talk about some stuff that we've already talked about.
Right.
But yeah, we're glad to have you, and we just thank you. Thank you for basically opening up, talking to us, and giving our alliance and those that are watching just that informative type of information and just things that you've gone through, and just
Right.
being vulnerable.
Absolutely.
And being able to help those that are in our counties, whether it's the people that we're helping or those that are doing the help, the resources that are out there. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, we really appreciate you.
Thank you. And I think that it says a lot that you guys want to hear stories of recovery, because I have been through some of the things that I've been through have been so painful, right? And I've thought I had that hopelessness for so long. And so to be able to sit here today and use it as a tool and something that is one of my strengths today, that is something that, you just can't bottle that up and sell it. It's something that has happened. It's real. It's true. So
Yeah.
I'm just glad that there are people that are interested in that and that find value in that. And
Absolutely.
I'm so grateful for that.
That authentic person that comes out, being
Right.
able to talk about that is just, it's amazing. And I really thank you seriously for that.
Absolutely.
So yeah, we're going to dive into some questions, and feel free if you want to just add some things. You don't have to stick to the questions.
Okay.
You can actually just make up your own questions if you want to. But yeah.
Okay.
Let's
We'll just have a discussion.
It's just laid, yeah.
I
Strictly
guess,
discussion. Yeah.
My first question is, how did you find the strength or the willpower to put your recovery first and then put motherhood on the back burner?
Right. That's a really good, that's a good question. I want to explain it just a little bit because I know what you're saying. And that is one of the things that scares people off a lot in recovery. I hear they talk about you have to put your recovery first, and then comes being a mom, and then comes being a daughter, then comes, job somewhere in there. And so for me, it's been really important to remember that when I don't have recovery, then I don't have the other things that are important to me. So I need to put recovery first. And I was always told from the get-go that when I put that first, everything else will start to fall into place. I won't be a good mother if I'm not in recovery, right? So I need to get in recovery. And then what has happened along the way is I've met some incredible people. So I identify as a single mom in recovery. And really, it's kind of it's a mindset. Because when I come in and I think I'm alone and I don't have help, then that's what's going to happen to me. And at first, when I walked into recovery, I had a backpack and I sat in what they call death row in the back of the room, like just taking notes, not talking to anybody, feeling different and apart from. And so I knew I had this kid and I was bringing this kid around in diapers. I walked to meetings and I had this little 1.5-year-old coming to meetings like that. But ultimately, when I started to embrace the people around me, there's a lot of people that have experiences like me. I'm not, and that's the important thing is there's a lot of parents out there that are getting in recovery, okay? And so I was able to open up to them, and they taught me a lot about how to be a mom, how to be an independent woman, how to be a responsible adult, because it's not just one area of my life that I needed help with.
Yeah.
Right. It's all the areas. It's paying my bills. It's cooking the food. It's being going to work, being a mom, all those things. So basically, how I got that willpower stuff that you were talking about, I was in counseling at that point back in 2014, and I was working at a food truck and a bar. And I remember, there were a lot of bottoms leading up to this one. Okay, so I had just gotten out of an abusive relationship and moved back in with my parents. And I remember applying for programs at that time. They consider that homeless. I was going to Section 8 and HUD housing, right? Because I don't have a place I can call my own. anyway, so I was going and working at the bar, working at the food truck, and then I started leaving my son with my parents all the time. They basically helped me raise my son a lot, the grandparents. And then I was going and cashing my checks at the bar and then staying there all night, right? Not even going home. And so there was a moment when my parents came and picked me up at this person's house. I'd called them and asked for help. And they came and picked me up, and my son was in the car, and he was so excited to see me. You know, he's 1 at this point. He's 1, and he's so excited. And I'm trashed, wasted out of my mind, you know? And I just remember the next day, my dad's like, we need to call your boss. We need to get this figured out. He needs to not let you drink so much and all this stuff. And I just remember having a moment of clarity. We talk about in recovery, a thought unlike anything I've ever heard before, all of a sudden comes into my brain. This is my fault. This isn't his fault, their fault, its fault. It's my fault, right?
Yeah.
And so in counseling, talking about abuse, talking about being assertive, talking about how to be a mom, all those things. And then finally it came down to the point of like, I need to get in recovery. Like that's actually something I need. That's my first step. I need to get into recovery. So I started going to meetings, and I started getting in the rooms of recovery and kind of being around recovering people.
Did you go to counseling in treatment?
I didn't actually go to treatment. I just went to counseling.
Oh, okay.
So when I first started it took me about 30 days to figure out what it meant to be in recovery. Because I thought if you still smoked like little roaches, that wasn't getting high.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't realize that was still getting high, or taking a pill here and there.
Yeah.
That's using. I didn't realize that. Or it's just beer, you know.
Yeah.
Like that stuff still counts as not being in recovery. So I had to kind of eliminate some of that. I got a sponsor. You know, and just started working the recovery process.
So when you say you didn't go to treatment, you're just in counseling.
Right.
So explain to us, what is the difference in treatment?
Okay.
You know, so
Right. So
because you receive counseling in treatment though, right?
Right. So, well, with treatment, they do a lot of at Natural State where I work. They have a social worker, and then they also have a clinical supervisor. That's Bobby Ward. He's a drug and alcohol counselor, and then also a clinical supervisor. And so they get both. They get you know, mental health services, substance use disorder services in treatment. But for me, this was like one of those God moments that people talk about. The counselor that I found, it was supposed to be just for my abuse problems, like trying to figure out how to get away from this guy, you know? And so when I first started going to therapy, it was for like trauma. That's what I was going for. But I couldn't get to his appointments without chugging a beer and taking his Xanax. Like I could not get honest with him without
you
a
needed
substance.
a substance.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Without that buzz.
Yeah, I needed, because that's the only way I could. So whenever,
Right.
and that's what we addressed in the counseling, only to find out later that he's one of us. He's a recovering person. And so he heard me talking about this stuff, and he identified with me. So really it was a little bit of peer support going on in there, you know, but he was just mental health. And we did an assertiveness exercise, and then we started to kind of dive deeper into like, do you deserve this abuse? Do you deserve, who do you see yourself, and what are you trying to do here, and really self-discovery. And that helped me. And then I started going to therapy and being in recovery, and I would talk to him about step work. And then I'm like, I'm confused. Are you my sponsor, or are you my therapist? Like, what's going on here? So we had to draw a line. You know, no, he's my therapist. That is separate from my sponsor. Those are two totally
That's
different relationships.
Yeah, and just not knowing. I mean, that's why I asked that question, because there is a difference between your sponsor and you have a counselor or a mental health therapist, or, I mean, there are so many different layers to it.
There
and you
are.
need all of those people, or you need that support.
Absolutely. I think
around.
having options is really good. I love having options. Probably why I love like drugs back in the day, because having options, I don't know. But I think the mental health stuff is important. I think the substance use stuff, to me, in my book, that's all similar. It's very similar. But having that, and then also peer specialists, people that have lived experience, and then you have a sponsor over here. So they're all different. They kind of address different parts of me. And then at the end of the day, like, how do I take all of that and then go home and practice it?
Yeah.
Because I can sit in a room all day and talk, right? But am I going home and practicing some of this stuff?
Right.
And so so I go through phases. I go to therapy sometimes I'm only going to meetings. Sometimes I'm not. I feel like I'm just kind of reaching for something. You know, I'm not sure. So I go through phases and seasons. Just recently I went to a doctor and started talking about medications. So I'm just kind of going through different phases. As long as I don't pick up and I continue the process of recovery, you know, it's just not linear. It's, you know, up and down sometimes.
Yeah. And as a mother, so when you were going through your recovery as a mother, what resources were available for you?
So one of the most useful resources to me, and I'm going to say this in active addiction first, because this helped save my son's life. I know this because at that time I was really bad off. Right. So part of my story is that I used in pregnancy, and then I stopped using for the last trimester so that I could pass a drug test. And then, but now I know that is not enough to stay clean, right? Or stay in recovery for a drug test. Wow. That is not enough. So as soon as I passed the drug test, then I continued to use as soon as we got home. So the drug test is over, so then I continued.
So how did you mentally prepare yourself to say, okay, I need to stop using for this drug test?
Right. I think it was like fear-based. I had a lot of fear. Uncertainty and fear. And so I was still using, or my partner was still using. And so I was around it all the time. But I think for some reason I was just able to kind of like just be abstinent for a while.
Wow.
It wasn't that I was ready to say goodbye to drugs forever or anything, or I wasn't trying to work on myself. I was just focused on passing a drug test. It was
so you had to like not use drugs for what, 30 days? How long?
It probably
was that?
lasted. It probably lasted about 2 months. Okay. Yeah, probably about 2 months.
Wow, that's interesting because it's like, okay, you can mentally tell yourself, I can stop doing drugs for 2 months so I can pass this drug test.
Right.
But then are you just like, oh, I can't wait till day 29 because
I mean, especially if you're around it every day, you're probably like, ugh.
Yeah. That has to be hard.
I was like 8 months pregnant, and I'd be woken up in the middle of the night. And I was going to school. I graduated, so I gave birth during finals week of my last semester in college.
Wow.
And I was 8 months pregnant, and I was woken up to like, I don't know, I don't want to be too graphic, but like to give drugs to my partner at the time, my son's dad. He would wake me up and have me, I can't even say the words. I don't even know.
Assist him.
Yes, I would assist him. Yeah, so I was 8 months pregnant. He would wake me up and I would assist him with getting high. But I wouldn't get high. But I was still sick. I was in that disease mindset. And I knew that I could hold off. And then when I got back home, maybe I had postpartum depression. I'm not sure. But I immediately started using again when we got home from the hospital. My son's dad wasn't even there at the hospital whenever I left. He was already at the dope house getting ready for us when we got home. And he was celebrating. Yay, we had a baby. Here's drugs, because that's what we knew. That's what we knew how to do. Cope with the bad, cope with the good. That's how we used. So then the resources that helped me during that time was a free weigh-in clinic at the hospital. No judgments.
Any of this, did you have a DHS case?
No.
To get these services, or was it just anybody?
It was available.
This was available to the public for everybody, and I thought that was great because I was in line with people that were my college professors. I ran into a college professor there, and here I am, like strung out on drugs with my baby, and I'm standing next to my college professor, but we're both there for the same thing. So it was interesting because it was a free resource. What they would do is you come in, you bring your baby, they weigh the baby, and then they give you free diapers, or there's a lactation consultant, so you could meet with a lactation consultant. And at this point, he was 4 months old, and he'd only gained 2 pounds. So he was diagnosed with failure to thrive. The first time I went to the weigh-in, this was a weekly. Every Friday, we go to St. Mary's Hospital, wait in line, and do our little weigh-ins. He measured a little bit under. I slipped under the radar and left really quick. And then the second time we went in, it was like they stopped us and we had a conversation with the doctors. And this is one of those moments where it could have gone, this should have been enough maybe for me if I would have realized the damage I was causing to my son. I don't know if he had failure to thrive because I was on drugs, but I was breastfeeding while I was getting high. And so his sleeping habits and his eating habits were all over the place. And there's just not enough research to find out, is it in the breast milk or not? But so what happened was, I met with the lactation consultant because I had issues, and then it was dark. She turned the light off and she sat there and watched me. And at that moment, she was like, "I can really tell that your son loves you." She could see there wasn't neglect going on. It was just that I couldn't get my life together. I could not get the schedule on, right? Because you got to be 2 hours, eating and sleeping every 2 hours. So I stayed in the hospital for about a week. And I guess I was on Medicaid, and he was on Medicaid, and it was completely paid for. And I just remember being scared to leave the hospital because I knew when I get out of there,
you were going to go get high again.
Right. No.
Were you in school during that time?
I just graduated.
You had just graduated. That's right. Okay.
Yes.
Wow.
So during my finals week, I had my baby, and then I graduated college 2 weeks later.
So it's like you were still using, but you made huge accomplishments.
Right.
because some people hadn't even graduated college. Some people, I mean, so it's like you're thriving in some areas,
Right.
but still struggling in other areas.
Mm-hmm. So that's why addiction does not discriminate.
Yeah.
Right. I think that it doesn't matter. We think we have a stigma of what that person looks like. But I mean, my family, I thought I had them fooled, because here I am graduating college. Here I am, like, successfully raising a kid. So it looks like. But then if you actually hung around and watched me, you'd realize like that I'm insane and that I have no control over my life. It's unmanageable. But it was all under wraps. Under, when I didn't go out. I wasn't partying a lot outside of the house. We would get high and hang out in the house and window surf for the whole night. So I was always in a building somewhere. For the most part. So it wasn't that I was, going out a lot. And I think maybe that might have made an influence.
I think school made an influence. It gave you a drive to, like, I'm doing all this, I'm messing up this bad. At least I can thrive in school, finish school and graduate school. And it looked good.
Yeah.
What's wild about that is in my school, I would write and create a writing class, or I was in a playwriting class about getting high. I would talk about, my characters would literally be freebasing. And I even told my professors,
I know, that's dope.
Very vivid.
Like, hey,
I
That's
remember,
dope.
That's dope. Yeah, not to be mistaken for, no.
yeah, I know, pun intended, actually.
But
So,
yeah,
but yeah,
that's good.
I would, and it's weird because when I told them I was pregnant in school, I had said, hey guys, I'm pregnant and I'm on drugs. I told my professor I was on drugs and I'm pregnant, and I said, I'm going to take care of it. It's okay. I'll take care of it. I don't know why I needed to tell them that. I don't know what. There were so many.
You just offered that information.
Yeah.
Were you high then?
I don't know. Probably. I'm sure. Why would I do that? I don't know. But the one thing I always say is that there was a room full of people that could have reported me and they didn't. And so it's one of those things where I don't take that lightly. I take that very serious about how I was putting my son's life in danger. I can't even describe like all the times that we did, whether it was driving down the interstate, my son's dad and I were fighting and I had him in my arms and he was, just all, and then also just the using, leaving him abandoned in a car while we're inside the house and it's 90 degrees outside and, all the things that I did as a mom and active addiction. I don't take that lightly. It's very serious.
And you mentioned that the nurse or the doctor that, put you in the dark space or whatever, she said that she knew that your baby loved you. But you as a mother, we know you loved your baby.
Right.
And I think we talked about this prior to the podcast, but mothers in addiction, that doesn't mean that they don't love their babies.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's just that addiction that you're sick.
Strong.
Yes.
And that addiction and that drug is so strong, that substance, whatever it is, whether it's alcohol, whether it's pills, whether it's cocaine, whatever it is, it's like that is so overpowering.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that you don't love your babies.
Right.
So, yeah, I just wanted to make that point too, because that's real deep.
It's very, very good. And I remember hearing in a meeting, there was a man talking, and nothing against men at all. Looking at me like that. But he was talking about there was a young mother in a meeting holding a baby, and he said, what you need to do is hold that baby and realize this is why you're getting clean or getting in recovery. And I thought to myself, if that were the solution, I would have already been in recovery. Yeah. That is, it has to be more and deeper than that. And it has to be about me and not just about doing it for the kid. Yeah. And that's a very hard realization and I've had conversations with women who have lost custody of their kids, and we have to get really honest that they're scared sometimes to get their kids back because they realize that their whole life is about to change yet again. So they get clean, they have a routine, and then their kids are getting back in their life, and now they're terrified again. Right? Am I going to be able to stay clean during this? It's not that I don't love them or that I want them. How do I live like this?
Adapt to it.
Yes,
because that's what it is. I mean, it's a whole new way of life.
Being, like, real selfish to living for
sacrifice, and you have to. Yeah, you got to put them in your schedule. You got to pay extra. You got to do all the things.
Right.
So definitely, it's about loving myself, and then also about loving the kid. And,
because you have to save. It's like the airplane analogy. You know how they say you put your life.
Your mask on first.
Yeah. But and then you save somebody else. But you have to save yourself.
Right.
You have to be okay in order for everybody else to be okay.
Right.
So what type of I'm just speaking on your experience because
Okay.
this can help somebody else too. But
Right.
that it takes a team, I
Yes.
think,
Yes.
of resources or people, or so what type of support or wraparound services would benefit someone that you think that a mother that's in addiction or in recovery?
Right.
What type of services, wraparound services, would help?
Absolutely. That's a good question. So during my time when I first started to get into recovery, I needed other mothers that knew what it felt like to be like
Yeah.
me. I really needed other mothers to help me learn how to parent and learn how to, be independent and do all those things. And also tell me that it's okay to leave a meeting because my kid is being loud. Parents telling me stop giving your kid candy when they're being loud. That just means that you're giving, rewarding bad behavior. But I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Right.
And I didn't know that, just because I am in recovery means that I'm going to know how to be a mom.
Right.
So I needed other moms to help me and walk through that process. I also started counseling. We did what's called parent-child interaction therapy.
Oh, wow.
PCIT, and that's a certification that once you go through the whole program, then I would be able to teach someone else that program too. But it's basically me and my kid learning how to interact with each other. Okay. And they use timeout and stuff like that. It's really weird. I'm playing with my kid. I have an earpiece in, and the therapist is in a two-way mirror watching me, talking to me while I'm playing with my kid. So it's a really interesting treatment, but I needed that also. That was a really good service.
I need to talk to you after this to see where we can
Right.
get those. Who I can talk to get them
Yes.
part of this alliance.
Well, and
'cause
this
we
was
need those
through
services.
right, and that was through Our Kids paid for it. Because my son was on Our Kids.
okay.
So, of course, Our Kids, I can't even describe how much that has helped our experience, right?
Yeah.
And then also, food stamps. I live off food stamps for sure
Yeah.
during that time. And being able to navigate the system that way through getting some government assistance. So those were some big resources that I used.
It's good. And
And WIC also, of course.
okay.
That's a big
That's
one.
good. Yeah. So resources are needed. Wraparound services are needed. So when it comes to support, did you have like family support or friends outside of the normal friends that would get high with you, or was it just what kind of friendships did you have?
So I think that we as a society, it's quick for us to identify when somebody has a problem. We'll say, you need to do this and you need to do that, especially as a mom. I get that a lot. And whether mom or dad's like, you need to act like this.
Yeah.
Don't do this to your kid. What I needed was somebody to go with me. Right. So I had a lot of friends during that time that went with me to my meetings, went with me, to the store, went with me to go look for this or that. So I needed that support that way. I was a straight single mom that did not have like okay, let me just restart that. Okay. So I was a single mom that did not have the support from the dad's side,
Yeah.
but his grandpa, Jack's grandpa, my son's dad's dad, I'm not even sure if that's useful at all for me to say that, but he was trying to help. My parents were trying to help, but there's still a lot of like trauma there.
Yeah.
And so it was hard to navigate those waters.
Yeah.
So I needed somebody from the outside to help me. So I made new friends. I had a lot of elders around me helping me. I didn't hang out with a lot of people my age because they didn't get it. And they'd say, this is, they would literally hands off, stop calling me because they didn't know what to do. I'm not doing what they're doing. And also I got pregnant at a young age. And so they're definitely not hanging out with me at that point. So I really had to make new friends that were doing the same things that I was trying to do, and they would go with me. So
And that's real good.
right,
I like that. You had to make new friends with people that are trying to do what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
right,
I love it.
yes, and that goes for not just single moms in recovery, but and that's another thing is we isolate ourselves as parents in recovery sometimes. But I have to bring my kid to meetings. I like to see other moms bringing their kids to meetings, and then all of a sudden I have like a play date You know, and I've actually asked other moms, bring your kids to meetings so that my kid has another kid to play with.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, like
Yeah.
we think we need to leave them at home, but we need to bring them with us.
Yeah,
because
and social skills, everything that they're getting new friends, they're
Right.
meeting new families. Yeah,
Right.
that's
and
good.
so it's like we do that, and then we create a little network.
Yeah.
So like when I need help outside of meetings and I need to go to work and I need somebody to watch my kid, I have a ton of moms in recovery and dads in recovery that I can
like
call and they can help me because they know what I'm going through and they know what it feels like. Just like, you know, so we
like
support
that.
we support each other. And that's what, you know, I've never been alone. I have a whole circle of people to help me. It's mindset, right? Am I open enough to let people help me, you know, or am I just closed off and thinking it's never going to work?
Yeah.
Like that's the number one thing I hear people say, I have a kid and I can't go to a meeting. It's an excuse,
Wow.
right? Where did we take our kids or what did we do with our kids when we were getting high?
Yeah.
I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
Like, why can I
make
not
a
take
way.
them? Yeah. And I mean, like, it's important to realize that, like, it's going to be difficult sometimes. I'm going to cry a lot. I'm going to go through, like, hard emotions of, like, I don't know what to do. But, like, just keep coming and don't give up. I mean, absolutely. You got to keep coming and just keep working it. And now Jack knows things. He's picked up. He's got as much clean time as I do, right? He's been in recovery as long as me.
Yeah.
And so he's got great meeting etiquette for the most part. He knows how to be quiet and to listen to me. And he does, hey, mom's going to a meeting. You know, he's got that. He said, 1 is too many, 1,000 is never enough. He's like, he's saying, what does that really mean? You know? So, I mean, it's
How old is he?
He's 8.
He's 8 years old.
Yes. And some people choose to keep their kids separate from that. So I don't want to say that it has to be this way.
Yeah.
Like there's sometimes some things are not okay to talk to kids about. Like I know that there's some parents that when their kids are older, they're just getting into recovery. So maybe they can understand. They've seen their parents in addiction. My son was 1.5. So I really was lucky. But what if you've got a 14-year-old or somebody that's older that sees you, right, in active addiction? How do you have that conversation with them when they're older? And that's, you know, we got to, they know what's going on.
Yeah.
When they're older, they know what's going on. So I've got to show them with my actions consistently that I'm in recovery.
So speaking of that, so if there is a mother that has an older child and they understand all of that, but don't they have like family therapy and addiction for everybody, like family, what is it, AA? What
Alateen.
Alateen, that's what it is. Isn't that for the families that
Yes.
people can go to together? And
We have Alateen and Al-Anon.
yeah,
The Alateen, I think, is still developing in Little Rock. We had a really strong Alateen community, and I think that COVID really hurt that community.
wow.
But I believe they're starting back up over at Wolf Street. They used to have Alateen meetings. I just err on the side of caution that everywhere that these younger people are going to meet, that it's safe. And that they're not, it's not that I don't trust young people. I think young people obviously are the future and they're important and they know what's best for them, but they also need to have guidance, like role models in the room so that they're not getting led astray. So I think that,
That's
again,
important.
absolutely, because
That's
if
important.
left to their own devices, I've heard people say that their first time using was at Alateen, right? So it's like we want to make sure that it's
they get
safe.
a lot of information that may not be.
Sure. Yeah. That
I
they're
got
getting
it. Yeah.
right. Because
Okay.
but they all come from a similar background,
Yeah.
right? They're all there
Yeah.
for a reason. And as long as the primary reason is to heal,
Mm-hmm.
then it's going to be okay. We would just want to make sure that we have leaders there, like healthy leaders. And I think that's going to be what's really important.
Yeah.
Having mentors and healthy leaders that understand that these kids are going to go through ups and downs with this process of recovery too. Just as much as the parent is, the little person in the house or the young person in the house is going to be going through that too.
Yeah.
You know, everything's going to change. And so we got to prepare for that.
I can sit here and talk to you all day.
I could.
Russell, do you have? I really took over. He had one question that he got
Yeah.
in. I'm
I
sorry.
probably just got one more
sorry.
question.
Okay. No, that's awesome.
Like the point when your family is like, okay, she's got it.
Right.
You know, when did that point come about? When they were like, okay, we'll give him back to you.
Right. So I've had some hard discussions with my family because there were times when I let my parents watch my son a lot for certain events, and I was kind of using them a lot. I don't want to say lazy, but I was kind of putting it on the back burner, letting my parents watch my kid a lot while I was doing recovery things because I was trying to, like, I want me time. But then my dad had a conversation with me. He was like, you're gone as much as you were when you were in your active addiction. So I had to take a look at that, right? And that's when I had to really look at, okay, let me bring my kid with me. You know, let me take more time to make sure that I'm bringing my kid with me and including. What they told me in recovery is it's about quality time over quantity. So the time that I'm with my son, I'm present and I'm there and I'm playing with him and I'm focused on him versus, you know, just because I'm with him all the time.
Not just put him in front of a TV, give him an
Right.
iPad. Just,
Right.
yeah.
And that's what I did in my addiction. So
Yeah.
when I would have those hard conversations with my parents, and it was usually my dad that I would talk to him about this, it's when I started to make those changes, listening to him, hearing what he said, putting it into play, and realizing that they need to be grandparents, they're not the parents. So then I need to step up and be a mom, and that just started to naturally happen. It probably took about 2 years, honestly. Once they saw me actually taking charge, paying my own bills, really being independent with my job, being successful in my career, you know, it just took about 2 years. I mean, truly. The first year I was like, who am I? Like, I can't even figure out what I want to eat for dinner. You know what I mean? Like I think it's not about the time. It's about the quality of, you know, the quality of recovery. But for me, it took about 2 years. And that's just because I was putting it into action, and it just takes time to do that, to put it into action.
I mean, 2 years is good.
Yes.
Think about the years it took you, you know, that you took them through that whole process of your addiction. So 2 years that's not a long time.
No. I will say, though, that my dad asked my sister just the other day, I mean, it was probably about a month ago, does she even have a bank account? Asking if I had a bank account, because he still sees me as his youngest. Like, I'm 30. Okay. I moved a little. I'm like, I have a bank account. Like, why is it even? But so there's still some things, you know. Concern.
Get a Costco membership too. Huh?
I think I'm going to stay away from Costco.
You're a real adult.
You're a real adult.
Yeah.
No, I don't need both.
Tomorrow.
But yeah, so
good.
I think the conversation about being a mom and being a parent and all those things are super important, because I just don't think we talk about it enough. Sometimes, you know, there are meetings that are closed. They won't let kids in, and you tell one person that, and all of a sudden their whole idea of recovery has changed. I think it's important for us, and services too, we have to include the children.
Yeah.
We have to include the children in the whole story and know what they're working with, who is their support structure, and what do they need, the services that they need. I mean, that's what we need to do, I think.
That's good. Good information.
Thanks.
So, Russell, you good?
That's it. Yeah, I'm good.
You good? Okay.
Pretty good.
I'll let
Pretty
you
good.
talk more next week. Thank you again, Bonnie, so much for your time. Thank you for being just open and giving us so much insight on your life, on motherhood. And we just hope you come back to see us.
I will. Thank you.
Thanks so much, and we'll see you guys next week.